welcome back to Daredevil. If You Dare, Season 2 reviews on What the Flick with Alonso, Meredith, Bibbs.
Don't take my line.
You can have a new one.
It's the most devilish review show on YouTube.
There we go.
There we go.
So good. So what we're doing now is we're on 7, 8, and 9, which are Semper Fidelis, Guilty as Sin, and 7 Minutes in Heaven. Not what you think.
Oh, but if only.
Right?
John Bernthal.
One man's heaven is another man's hell.
So we're focusing mainly now on Castle's trial and the aftermath following that. Also, Stick and Elektra have some revelations to make. They're crossing over each other. Foggy and Karen are not happy with Matt. Let's focus on.
Is this the end of Nelson and Murdoch?
That's the thing. This season, I mentioned last time that I thought the season is a little bit less focused than the first one, and I stand by that. I still think it's a solid season, but it's a little less focused. It's kind of all over the place, and we're waiting for everything to kind of crash back together again. But one thing that is very, very similar from last season is the idea that Matt's Daredevil shenanigans are getting in the way of the actual legal trial shenanigans, and it's causing, once again, will Nelson and Murdoch fight crime in the law place again? And it's the same exact beat.
I'm just over Matt. At this point, I am over Matt. I'm like, okay.
I think we're on opposite ends because
Really?
I'm over Foggy and Karen.
What?
Well,
Fight crime on the street, duh.
Fogworth Nelson is the hero of this show, and I'm not just saying that because everyone says I'm just
Hold
like
on. Quiet for a second, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me have this out with Kim for a moment. So here's the thing with Matt.
Okay.
He has completely neglected all his friends, his job, for what? To go punch some people in the face, which is awesome, don't get me wrong. But also, let's just go back.
To be Daredevil?
To be Daredevil, but let's rewind a couple of episodes.
Your ex shows up and everything gets
She's
thrown
hot,
in.
don't get me wrong. And I would go run off with her too. But here's the thing. Punisher makes the best freaking stance with it is that, Matt, you are one bad day away from becoming him, but he's such a fucking hypocrite about it. That's the thing that's been pissing me off about Matt this whole season is that he's throwing all of this away without, it hasn't once got through to him that I'm like, dude, Matt, take a step back and realize what you're doing, because you know what? Frank's right. Karen's right. Foggy's right. Everyone else around you is right. You're up here being sanctimonious as can be about your actions, and you're screwing up everyone around you. And I am so over what a weenie he is.
You need to look at what you said. He's abandoning his job and he's abandoning his friends. Is his job to be the lawyer, or is his job to clean up Hell's Kitchen?
Isn't it?
And that there's a different way of taking out what that
Well,
is.
Well, he is technically trying to do both, and one of them is falling aside.
Right.
I do think.
I'm saying, he's trying to sort of stand on that thing of like, no, I have the law and justice and not vigilantism, but at the same time, yes, he's spending the bulk of his time and energy being a vigilante, and so it becomes that thing of like, which is the secret identity and which is the actual
the mask
person.
and which is the real guy.
But he's doing a shitty job balancing the two. It's sort of like in the crappy Batman vs. Superman movie where Clark Kent isn't really doing his job very well as a reporter. Matt Murdock is not holding up his Matt Murdock end as a lawyer.
As a longtime reader of have we all read the Daredevil comics? Have we all?
I read Born Again.
Yeah.
All right, I was been a big fan. It predates my birth, but I've read it back a lot of the ways. There's an inherent irony to Daredevil as a character because he believes in the law and he believes in solving crimes through vigilante justice. Inherently, he does not work, but rather than that simply being confusing and pointless, the better Daredevil writers, I'm thinking people like, honestly, Brian Michael Bendis, who's not even my favorite, but he was always really, really good at it, has basically just said, Matt is a prick.
Yeah.
Matt he is charming, he is talented, he means well, but his entire belief system is inherently fucked
He's
up.
an uptight Catholic.
I think they're scratching the surface of Bendis's Daredevil right now, but they're not. It's not reading true to me, and that's what's driving me nuts. And also, come on, Matt, you don't believe in killing, but how many guys' backs have you broken? How many guys are they're probably on life support. They're pretty much dead at this
Batman
point.
conundrum where it's like, I'm not technically immediately killing them,
But in 5 years, they're probably going to be,
But you're going to be peeing into a bag for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But that's and maybe this
It
is
could just also be that Elektra is keeping him up all night, so he's sleep deprived, and that's why he's a jerk.
Yeah.
There's also
No, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. There's a danger here in judging, because the thing with a storyline like the ones that Daredevil tells, as opposed to something like we see on The Flash, which is very episodic and the story arc kind of goes and fits and starts throughout the whole season. We're judging Matt for his behavior right now, and as well we should. We should be this emotionally invested in the storyline, but it's only really at the end of the season, and maybe honestly even only at the end of the series, that we're really going to see what the point was.
Yeah.
What point are we getting to? Is Matt going to learn a valuable lesson here? Is the show siding with Matt? Is it siding with the Punisher? Is it siding with Karen or Foggy or Kingpin? Screw it. I don't know.
And fine to raise the questions, but I think, call the characters on the fact that you're doing that as it's happening. It seems like the show, it weirdly wants to have its cake and eat it too, in terms of like being Law and Order Hell's Kitchen and being like Biff Bow Pam, Bam on the rooftop, and not wanting to. And making everybody else at fault for Matt wanting to do both those things and to not commit to both.
The audience wants him to be Daredevil. The audience wants him to beat people up. But in order to take the premise of Daredevil, which is lawyer/vigilante, you have to do both. And if Matt's going to plausibly do either one really, really well, the other one's going to have to suffer, which again was why we're having the same plot as the first season.
All I'm saying is that I just want it written a little bit better, and I want it written with a little bit more complexity. I feel that Matt himself is not struggling enough, and maybe this is me being that like gross comic book nerd where I'm holding the series up to some of the best writing that I've read in the comics. And I know, because I know Marvel's capable of that. We saw that complexity in Jessica Jones. We've seen it in the complexity of the villains. So give me that out of Matt Murdock. Don't give me this flat, two-dimensional character that I know they're capable of having a deeper thought process from him. That's all I'm asking.
I mean, Fisk and Castle are much more interesting characters, even Elektra to a certain extent.
Well, now that we're finding out more about her anyway, now that we find out that
I've been wavering back and forth on her in this span of 3 episodes, which is, oh, she's terrible, she's so selfish, she's so involved with herself, and then Stick comes and says, hey, she's working for me, and then we have that level of, when did you start working for Stick? Was everything we had a lie? And then we have her say, you're the only one who ever thought I was good. It just, I love going back and
Which
forth
she says
on her.
moments before slitting the throat of a teenage kid. Like, wow. Okay.
I did the one thing I was never supposed to do. I fell in love. I hate that plot. They always do that plot. If that happened to you, if you knew someone since college and they were like emotionally and mentally manipulating you for like a decade, and then you were just like, but I was never supposed to fall in love with you, it'd be like, I forgive you for all the manipulations and all the lies because you expressed affection for me in one sentence.
I don't think it's just one sentence, though. I think she's shown love to him before.
You can't trust
he can
literally
hear her
anything
heartbeat.
she's ever done.
He does his Daredevil lie detector.
Yeah, I was going to say, he kind of
He knows what she.
Yeah.
I think deep down she does love him,
and I think he knows that.
It's something he knows too.
You can love someone and you can have a shitty love.
That's fine. Not
that's
all
the real fundamental
relationships are
issue
healthy.
here.
Not all. I think he recognizes this is not a healthy relationship, but I still love her. So
they shouldn't be together.
Yeah.
Sure.
But there's still something important there.
One thing about this arc, I love the Fisk stuff. Like, I mean, I think that
was
is
such a good
that is the
surprise.
show's strongest suit to play. I mean, we saw that in season 1, and we're seeing it again now. All the stuff with all the backstory about him in prison and his manipulations, and how bringing Castle in, trying to sacrifice Castle, realizing he can't. All that stuff is great. You guys were complaining before that there was like, we had Castle on one side and Elektra on the other, and the show wasn't quite spinning the plates. And up until now, I was kind of giving them credit that they were. And even if those two streams never merged, I was all right with it. But now that we're going to have Castle and Elektra Stick and the Blood Farm and the hand and the whatever, I'm like, now maybe we're getting a little too spread out.
When you get to like the gaping, never-ending hole in New York City, and like the children who may or may not be nuclear weapons or something.
Are they in the hole? I don't understand.
I don't know what the hell. Well, they haven't been.
We'll get
really
there.
clear.
Yeah, we're not.
Regardless,
Yeah.
it's. One of the things with the Marvel Universe is that it kind of, when you have a shared cinematic universe, it throws a monkey wrench into one of the oldest sort of altruisms of storytelling, which is you can really only have one kind of inciting incident, one element of fantasy. You can't say, you can't have Terminator and then right in the middle of Terminator just have someone be a witch and turn someone into a dog. It would be weird. It would be really distracting.
Too many variables.
Yeah.
But in the Marvel Universe, you can. So one of the things that was cool about the first season of Daredevil was that it was really grounded. There was a superheroic element, but for the most part, it was mostly just organized crime. And here, they're starting to really dovetail in all the other elements. And I started thinking to myself, there's this whole trial of the century thing about a vigilante. Iron Man had better mention this in Civil War. Otherwise, it's a huge thing in his argument.
Speaking of organized crime, I do want to throw out one thing real quick that's always kind of bugged me. Marvel, they were always it's New York, it's not Metropolis. They were always very the more grounded comics thing. But I always hated Roxxon oil and remember the Magia? The Mafia with 2 G's. That was their crime family in the comics in the 70s and maybe later.
They're still around.
Yeah. So anyway, every time somebody says Roxxon, I just think,
it's something that got grandfathered in.
That's so fakey. And does the whole make anybody else think of Torchwood, whatever that last Torchwood was, the one
I refused to watch.
The one where nobody dies.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one.
That's the one I refused to
That one
watch,
had a big hole in it, too.
It did, yeah.
Like a literal big hole.
I always think of First Night. It's an oubliette.
I have like a bitter relationship with Roxxon because of some of the like newer storytellings and like what's going on with Roxxon, especially like in Thor comics. So I'm like, oh God, they're trying to make Roxxon. I don't want to see it how it is in the comics. But I get that's the big evil organization. My thing right now is with all the divergent storylines is that, and I'll admit, guys, I did get ahead. I'm 1 away from 13.
Nope.
And I won't say anything. I know it was too good. I couldn't stop. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, where is this all coming together? And I want to go back though, because I feel like we need to talk about this Kingpin episode. I really think we need to devote some time to this because I was not expecting D'Onofrio to come back. That was a huge added bonus for me, and I lost my mind. And the way he played everything out, beat by beat, this is the Kingpin at his best.
I love a good flashback episode that brings up the day. The Billions had a really good one this week too, where there's an incident and then you see all the threads that led up to that incident, and that's always good stuff.
I always love a guy takes over prison episode, and I couldn't tell if Daredevil did it better or if Empire did it better.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was also a good one. So I'm looking forward to the Kingpin's rap album. But that was a good. It was a really solid episode, and it was really very. I don't know, like it was just good.
Yeah.
Well, you just remember what you like so much about the Kingpin. And when we started looking at him in season 1, when he's a little boy, and what changed him and what shaped him, and you feel, I feel bad for him. But then you remember what he's truly capable of, how manipulative he is, how many fingers he's got out everywhere, and it's a lot of different feelings.
He's a despicable character, but he's smart and he's good at what he does. And I think at their best, like Murdoch and Nelson, when this show delves into the lawyer stuff, when they're smart and good at what they do, it's interesting to watch them do it. Even like Karen Page and now her apparent skills as a researcher.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair. Don't knock it.
She's got the research job.
Yeah, she's really good at that.
I'm just saying. Yeah. Again, she's smart and she's good at what she does, and that's interesting to watch. Characters do. It's like if people aren't good at what they do, then there's not a lot of drama there. But if they are at the top of their game and then facing off at other people who are at the top of their game and who's going to come out on top, that is inherently an interesting thing to watch. And so I think that's what makes the Kingpin so fascinating to watch in the show is that the way that Fisk is written, he's always got like a million schemes going, and he's playing three-dimensional chess on a level that almost nobody else in the show is doing, and it's fun to watch.
And he's finally he's given up that I'm doing this for the good of the city. He's like, no, F that, I'm doing this for myself.
Yeah.
And that's great to see. It's great to see him finally step into that true villain role, and I think whatever comes from that.
And especially now that there's this implication that Fisk himself was a pawn in this other larger scheme from not dead guy.
Yeah.
There's one thing that concerns me though, because as much as I'm enjoying seeing Karen be very active in the storyline and the research elements, all of that's good, and God knows the actress is great. Deborah
Ann Woll.
Thank you. I always want to say Deborah Karen Unger, but that's totally
No,
different
I
actress.
remember her from True Blood.
Right? Anyway, no, I do too. But like, that's my thing is this. It feels like they're not entirely sure what they want to do with her as a character. Because they keep saying, oh, you make a great lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh, you'd make a great newspaper person. And then it's going to be like Homer Simpson. And then you're going to find a big pile of sugar. And that'll be your next episode. I'm reminded of Kara Thrace in the Battlestar Galactica series, where like every season they repositioned her a little bit. And now because they just couldn't find her niche in the story.
Well, it's going to be tough because so I like Karen the researcher and journalist way more than Karen the actress. I think she becomes in the comics she becomes an actress and goes down the goes down the shady world
The
into
stony
porn.
end.
Yeah.
Well, that's Frank Miller, though.
That is Frank Miller.
Frank
I
Miller's
know,
like,
I
oh, there's a
know.
woman. Well, she's
Yeah.
probably going to go into porn and
Exactly.
become a drug addict. Thanks, Frank.
So I'm
And
kind of-
betray the hero.
Yeah, and betray the hero. So I'm kind of hoping that is an interesting element. So I think the TV show and the writers might still be struggling with what they exactly want to do with Karen in terms of how much are we going to honor from the comic canon and how much are we going to adapt it into what we've created in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
I guess we won't know until a certain character shows up.
yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things. I'm waiting for a certain character to show up. For example, in the comics, we all know how the whole Elektra thing ends up, and then we all know how it kind of says that never happened, and then we're going to rejigger it around. But this season seems like this would be a really good time to kill Elektra. She's famous for one thing for the most part, and that's dying in Daredevil in the 1980s. It's like saying, oh, Gwen Stacy died in the 70s.
But she's
What?
back because comics.
She's back.
Yes.
She's back as comics, and death is meaningless.
If you introduce Jean Grey in Act 1, you
Yeah,
better become
death
Dark
is
Phoenix in
meaningless.
Act
They
3.
flat out said death is meaningless now. The hand can resurrect anybody. So we're
that's
kind of
true.
just waiting to see how she's going to die, and are they going to wait? Are they going to bother until season 3 to introduce Bullseye, or is it going to be
Yeah.
like the Kingpin does it,
or does he show? Yeah, does he show up in the last episode?
Yeah,
You know.
Punisher has to do it. Something, you know.
Yeah.
If they, how much can they change? Because they changed
I don't
Ben
know. 'Cause I
Urich,
haven't- Yeah.
and that was like a major like, what?
Yeah.
We thought you were going to be faithful
Do
to
you
the
think
comics.
they dumped him just to make that hole for Karen now?
I think it helps, but I don't think so, because I honestly think the death of Ben Urich is one of the things that makes the first season of Daredevil feel very cohesive thematically, because boy, that's one of the better stories about the death of journalism.
Yeah.
Like between Daredevil and Spotlight last year, that was like a really
Yeah.
good double feature.
No,
And-
you're right.
And I was just, and I don't, it's so hard. The fact that they've gone this far with the Daredevil story without having Bullseye is like, it just shows how great Marvel is. But it's so hard to think of Daredevil without Bullseye. I mean, they're so iconic together, and we're all just waiting.
I tend to
just
think
waiting.
of Daredevil and Mephisto because I was a big fan of the Ann Nocenti run.
okay,
So I'm kind of
all
wondering, like, how are we ever going to get to like the supernatural
God,
stuff? Because the
I don't-
idea of there actually is a Satan in the Marvel universe, and Daredevil's super Catholic, and he stole his name.
It's bad. Like the stuff with the hand is getting too supernaturally for me. Like once they start introducing mysticism in the Marvel stuff, that's usually what turns me off. That's why I'm like I'm
Coming
Doctor
soon,
Strange,
Doctor
you're
Strange.
worried
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do.
But it's a natural. I mean, when you
It
bring
is.
up Doctor Strange, that it is going to go that way.
But
We
that's
have
fine. That's meant for
Jessica
that.
Jones is a world
Yeah.
where there are powers.
Exactly.
And they're going to converge.
No, I
Dave,
know.
by the way, was asking, goes, are they in Jessica Jones's office?
Right? I know.
I said, no,
No.
maybe.
Same
They're
neighborhood?
awfully, yeah. He goes, why? He goes, why do neither of these people have offices in shitty strip malls?
Because
why
they-
do they have
yeah.
these like? Because
Because
they're in
it's-
Hell's Kitchen. They
yeah.
don't have strip malls in Hell's
Yeah,
Kitchen.
New York, all tall buildings. Though I will say the new Doctor Strange comic has really turned me on to Doctor Strange, so I'll give it that. But yeah, I don't know. I think.
Fingers
I hope,
crossed for Brother Voodoo.
Yeah, I hope Bullseye is coming. That's just my personal hope. Hopefully, no one will spoil it in the comments.
All right, so
Start spoiling.
I know. Wait. Oh,
we
wait.
won't read them.
What? Nobu.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
so
no,
Nobu's
but-
back.
well, yes. No,
Death
not
is
dead.
meaningless.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he showed it. So who's in that thing?
Some guy.
Just some random
Probably
rando guy.
probably some dude. There's so many things that could be. I imagine it seems like all of this stuff is kind of building up to Iron Fist. 'cause
Yeah,
we've had,
that's what I
We had
feel.
teases about Kunlun
Yeah.
in
In the last
In the last
season.
season.
Yeah.
And the fact that they came back to that whole thing about why they needed that building, I'm like, okay, this is building to something.
Yeah.
This is going to be like the big plot of Iron Fist and or the Defenders or something. So I'm kind of on a wait and see for that, but I really hope they tie it together because
Well, we
again,
know
my
that
biggest
Iron
problem
Fist
the
is
season's
coming,
all scattered.
right?
Yeah,
So it's like
but-
Luke Cage, then Iron
Yeah,
Fist.
we get
Yeah.
Luke Cage. Yeah. So
And then probably Daredevil season 3 in the middle there because that's
Yeah.
the way they think.
And Jessica Jones season
Two.
2,
Have
and
they
then the
confirmed season
Defender.
2, Jessica
Yes.
Jones? Oh, good.
yeah, at TCA.
No, I don't know. I don't read this stuff. I don't know.
I was gonna say I thought they confirmed it at TCA a couple last.
I like to be
Yeah,
surprised.
the whole cast came out, but I could be wrong. No, what if Luke Cage is actually in the clay pot?
No.
No, he's not. But I know. No, I'm wondering. I mean, it would be interesting if.
It's the real Mandarin. Everyone can shut up.
I don't think there is a
Oh
real
my
Mandarin in the
God.
MCU.
No, there is
Yes.
because there was that Marvel one-shot where Ben Kingsley's character from Iron Man 3
Yep.
got kidnapped
Yeah.
by the actual
Actual
Mandarin.
Mandarin.
Oh,
It
okay.
We didn't
well
actually
then-
see who it
Yeah.
was. It was basically their way of saying, yeah, you know what, Iron Man 3 was awesome. Shut up.
I loved it. I
Iron Man
loved
3
it.
kicked ass. The
I
Mandarin
know.
is not sacrosanct. Let's move on. We're a little distracted. Hey, everyone, we'll be back
Sorry.
next week.
We
Later
totally
this week.
will. Yes.
Later this week with episodes.
The short leap soon
10
with,
through
with the
whatever.
rest of this
12.
thing. It's going to be great.
10, 11, 12.
Yes.